1 minute, maybe he can rejoin. I will text. What are we texting him about?
No, just tell him that we're starting. We're on YouTube.
What connection?
Okay, Cora, we are from YouTube, so I'll let everyone in.
Okay.
Diro, thank you, and welcome.
Hello.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Is everyone gone?
I have muted everyone so as to avoid the background noise. Just to let you know, we are streaming live on YouTube. So if you wish to take off your video and not have your video on a public space, you're welcome to do so. We're streaming on YouTube just to reach a broader audience and hopefully connect with more people in the UK, but also around the world. I can see that many people are not from the UK, which is good, it's great. So perhaps good morning to you. It is now 2:32 in the UK, and we'll just give a few more minutes for more participants to join in. This is it's not the first time that we come online, but it is the first time that there's a UK team with broadcast, and we have a completely an online public talk. So there might be some technical issues that we cannot foresee at the moment, and if they present themselves, we shall sort them out. So I'm sure all of you will bear with us if that happens. For those of you who are new to Zoom, you have the possibility. I've muted everyone now at the moment, and we'll keep it that way. We'll have a short presentation with some words and some images that we'll share with everyone, and then we'll open up for an open exchange for questions, sharing information, sharing experiences. We do not want it to be a lecture as such. We don't want it to be a lesson. We're not in a position to give lessons to anybody. We're here to share our experiences as pupils of the Golden Rosy Cross, which is a spiritual school that has been founded in Holland about 100 years ago, and now it's present in many countries around the world, and sees thousands of pupils and members participating into the activities organized. And today we are here to connect with everyone who is interested, who perhaps was interested in the title, the Gnostic Intervention, or anyone who is interested in the Rosy Cross, in Gnosticism, or more particularly in the offer of the Golden Rosy Cross. I think there's still a few people coming in, so we'll give it another couple of minutes. And perhaps correct?
Dennis has joined us also. Dennis, would you like to test your microphone, please, to see if now your connection is better, if you can hear us? possibly not. So Dennis has prepared this PowerPoint presentation and the whole presentation, but he has some problems with his connection today. So we may have to take over.
For those that were not with us at 2:30 exactly, we just reiterating the fact that we're gonna stream the talk on YouTube. So you're welcome to put your video down if you don't want to share your face online, or on anybody that might be watching. And we have muted everyone just to avoid at the moment background noise, but we will unmute everyone once we open for the exchange that will follow our initial presentation. Cora, shall we start the dance?
Yes, we can start. So are you going to share the PowerPoint?
Yeah.
Please. So the title of our presentation today is The Gnostic Intervention, Return of the Past. And we are going to start with a quotation from Kata Rose de Petri, Grandmaster of the School of the Golden Rosy Cross. Based on the experience of the ages, the ancient wisdom has always told mankind, times are changing, and we in them and with them. The divine plan is being carried out and fulfilled in us, with us, and through us, and in our time at a very rapid pace. This is why we must be time conscious. Slide 2, please. There we go.
At the conceptual level, in the 21st century, can we be allowed to say anything different about the mankind's relationship to time? Would we be able to say anything of its tenuous links with the causality of events? How must mankind adjust to this factor of time while living in our material circumstances, when accommodating ourselves to experiencing constant change over time? While responding to any new phase of evolving innovation, as time and again man is being confronted with the inevitable limitations or naturally occurring flaws or limitations, there will emerge the eventual acknowledgement that what was once considered to be progress or improvement yet again requires replacement to meet changing circumstances. Hence, by acknowledging a different approach is necessary. Once again, the sense of having to embrace change with the passage of time caused the demand for new evolving styles or a new product. Sensing that there are new needs to meet future demands, man continually works to secure and enhance comfort and increase efficiencies in daily life. His so-called planning for the future really comes from a pressure caused by acknowledging the need to deal with the weaknesses of present cultural and scientific endeavor. Being distinct from animal life, man assumes he has the ability to plan for a future which is of his own creating. Yet, when looking at the nature of man's relationship with the future, we can see that such plants are surrounded on all sides by uncertainty. These can be suggested in some examples in areas of science and culture. For example, if we look at language, a basic yet ironic and curious example of our tenuous relationship with time could be expressed in relation to the most tricky one of the future. This is even to be found in our language, for instance, in the English language, by the fact that at some point, whether we can even speak about the future in English language, the trouble being with what is usually called the future tense. So there is no future tense for verbs. We always need to add will. Will I do this? Or will I see? Will I live? So if our language does not contain a separate reference to express the future grammatically when we speak, does this suggest that perhaps how can we think, plan and communicate ideas about something that doesn't even exist? Wait, that's not quite right. Many linguists will tell you that the English language does not actually have a future tense. Tenses are important. So why would anybody say that there is no future tense? A tense is the way we speak about time. This is because there is no special way to change the verbs. Action words, for example, and the verbs themselves for the future tense, as it does when we talk about the present or the past, for example. To be a tense, the ending of a future tense word must change. Instead, we must use the word will together with the present verb to express the future intention. In fact, by that way of thinking, you could say that the only tenses in the English language are past and non-past, and may contain a little curious hint at man's experience about the uncertainty of future itself.
And we will speak a little bit about science now. And commentators say that until now man has largely bumbled along in one direction, forwards. The arrow of time has a huge impact on our lives, says physicist Julian Barbour. Such scientists believe that the universe has been getting more and more disorderly over time, not providing a clear direction for everything. That the arrow of time has been fired and there seems to be no stopping it. In Einstein's contribution to the relativity of time concept, it says that under certain conditions, even if two events appear to take place simultaneously, they can only be causally connected if there is time for one, the cause, to influence the other, the effect. This is characterized as causality. And there have a few nice quotes there.
Yeah.
Yes. Go on, Dario, sorry.
Yeah, there is this quote that we have on screen.
Yeah.
When you're courting a nice girl, an hour seems like a second. And when you sit on a red-hot cinder, a second seems like an hour. That's relativity, as expressed by Albert Einstein. And then I have another quote, which is not on screen, by Jan van Rijkenburg, which, together with Katerina Petri, was Grandmaster of the school. Acceleration of time has a major impact on people. They come to live in a different vibration field. Acceleration of time means an increase of light. Now that seemed to be as complicated as concept of the time could get. But then a few years later, physicists started to realize that causality might not be as straightforward as we thought. Instead of cause always preceding effect, effects can sometimes precipitate their causes. And even more mind-bogglingly, both can be true at once, as subatomic science and subatomic physics has shown us. And Cora, again, I have another quote from Jan van Reichenberg on the relativity of time, on cause and effect. Because as time accelerates, the successive events become clearer. Cause and effect come closer together. Man, in all his slowness and inconsistency with regard to the spiritual, will discover and experience all kinds of things that previously escaped him in a lower acceleration of time.
We're going to speak a bit about social progress, or so-called social progress. Is progress linear over time? As the population of the planet has adapted to changing circumstances in space or time, dependent on geographical location of various epochs, various methodologies for dealing with the immediate necessities that make life bearable have been created and will reflect the tastes and sensibilities of that time and place. This reality is created and to which all are expected to comply with, and is referenced frequently on a daily basis, either implicitly or explicitly through the social, political, economic, or religious interaction between the citizens.
And then we can see this not only in the social progress, but also with the ethical dilemmas. So going on the presentation. While the ethics of a particular society may circumscribe its conventions, rules, regulations or laws, ethical relativism states that there are no absolute truths, and that what is morally right or wrong varies from person to person, or from society to society. And I think we experience that in our lives. How different our perspective on things from the person next to us. The views of Herodotus, the Greek historian of the 5th century before Christ, have been returned to by modern philosophy, whereby it argues that no set of social customs is really better or worse than any other.
So each society develops standards that are used by people within it to distinguish acceptable from unacceptable behavior, and every judgment of right and wrong presupposes one or another of these standards. By the 20th century, philosophers had developed this idea further and so proposed the view that the primary function of moral language is not to state facts, but to express feelings of approval or disapproval towards some action, or to influence the attitudes and actions of others. In this view, right and wrong are relative to individual preferences rather than to social standards.
So there is on our screen a few ideas from modernism, questioning the idea of objectivity in many areas of the arts, and including ethics. Objectivity as a dubious invention of the modern era. And another point expressed by postmodernism was that human life and thought is a mosaic comprising many perspectives. Enlightenment inspired ideas of objective truth, which have influenced the thinking of virtually all modern scientists and philosophers. Now this has been proclaimed to be an illusion that has now collapsed.
And all throughout human history, mankind has been presented with circumstances that show evidence of a ripeness for a particular message that can have a deep relevance for those who find it resonates within the core of their consciousness. Repetition of certain experiences during their lives have made them ready to take a step beyond the routine consciousness necessary for daily existence, for which they are obliged to give their attention to fulfill their roles within family, their work life, their community sphere, or indeed their culture, religious, or national affiliation. And what we have here on this slide is what the universal teaching tells us, and what the School of the Golden Rosy Cross explains in terms of our sevenfold personality, our composition, the physical and astral and etheric and mental composition of man, of a human being, and the three centers of what we call the I personality, or the ego, or the ensoulment, which are the head sanctuary, the heart sanctuary, and the pelvic sanctuary. And we can come back to this slide later when we discuss, when we have an exchange, to understand it a bit better.
What type of experiences could be the catalyst that prompts the desire or curiosity to think on the outside of all that has the power to unite us with that constructive reality we call everyday existence? Can it even be seen as constructive and not a spontaneous or randomly occurring series of previous events or reoccurring scenarios for which we have had preconceived or pre-planned responses?
Are we staying on this slide, Dario?
I can pass on to the next one if you like, or can go in the previous.
Okay, I think we can stay on this one. The spiritual school of the Golden Rosy Cross describes itself as being a Gnostic initiation school whose founding principle was to aim to achieve a transfiguristic spiritual rebirth of the soul for that section of humanity which wanted to undergo this process. The possibility of that process for everyone is on the basis of the divine latent principle within us, which the school calls the rose of the heart, which we can see, I think, in the next picture on the next slide, Dario, maybe, yes. So it's in the middle picture shown as the rose of the heart, the seed of divinity left in us, in our microcosm. Gnosticism, an ancient wisdom that has reoccurred throughout human history, has always returned to unveil the fundamental concept that there are two life fields. Our world of continuous change, opposites and frequent conflict, and the divine life, which is static and harmonious. As modern physics has been attempted to explain that every atom is ultimately an energy form, and so as like energy attracts like energy, we could say, in other words, that this concept could be formulated as what we give out, we get back. The power field within the school contains divine radiations which support seekers on the path to spiritual rebirth. These radiations from a so-called electromagnetic field, which originates from the spiritual realm and are transmuted by liberated beings, so as to be able to touch the hearts of those who are seeking this path. During our almost Aquarian era, humanity is being urged to wake up to the reality of this new age in which we are also now living. The divine light forces now present in this era are sending radiations to the heart atom to awaken those who seek for the truth. If we cooperate with the light, the law of resonance, or like attracts like, as previously mentioned, will encourage this support.
If we cooperate with the light, knowing ourselves in acceptance in the moment of our feelings and personality traits, and surrender them to the influence of the divine atom in the heart, a higher longing for the spiritual path will eventually become a dynamic impetus in our lives. This influence does not originate from the ego, but from the awakening rose of the heart, referred to as the spirit spark atom within everyone, each one of us. With purposeful directness, eventually a new consciousness will gradually evolve, culminating in wisdom, and it will direct perception of a reality of truthfulness and oneness that can also act as a help for the wider world and humanity's path, so that it can give a revealing of its condition. Attainment of the aim of the path of the Golden Rosy Cross is then the complete transformation of the consciousness as peace, freedom, and love, which can reveal themselves to be the content of our unified consciousness. The opposites of this harmony have been increasingly nullified, and we would then occupy a position of valuing the truth of our spiritual essence, not in the past, not as something that will come in the future, but something that we experience and live in the now. Well, thank you for your attention so far. And as mentioned before, we're going to open now to an open exchange. So I'm going to mute you all. If you think that there is too much background noise for other people to, to be able to listen normally, just please mute yourself. And if you have a question, there is on the chat, on the bottom of your screen, the possibility to raise a hand. So if you raise your hand, we'll know that you want to ask a question, and we can come to you.
Dennis, could you say something to see if we can hear you now, please?
Hello.
Hello. Oh, we have two Dennises. Hi, the other Dennis.
Hello.
Well, hi there. Dennis was our presenter for today, Dennis Kelleher.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yes, you're still interrupted a little bit, your connection, but just wanted to see if you wanted to add
I'm
anything.
not sure what's going on today. The Kremlin's.
We have a first question. That perhaps is not so centered on the presentation. Arnie is asking in the chat, what do you think of the 5G release in the current moment?
I can't see this in the chat, Dario. Is
Is
it on YouTube? Where is my chat?
Actually, it was sent to me on this, sorry. I thought it was sent to everyone. Dennis, your connection is very disturbed. So Cora,
Yeah.
5G. There's, I think there's.
Why do you ask me?
No, I'm just saying. There's a lot of talk around 5G. There's much as there's about this coronavirus that's going around. Obviously, people tend to link different things, different experiences, and different.
Okay, cut me out then, because I don't know.
Yeah. Dennis will have to cut you out. Sorry. So I think we have a tendency of linking everything that goes around with perhaps some kind of sometimes some theories that we hear, or some other times fear that we carry within ourselves. Other times there are genuine concerns about technology, about what we call progress, that perhaps stems not from living wisdom as such, but from a different place, the place of the ego. There was a part of the presentation that was speaking about this, and what is your take, Cora?
About electromagnetic radiation, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we could broaden perhaps the topic a bit, not just connecting it to 5G, because 5G is going to be developed now, but next will be 6G, and in general there is a wave of radiation that have come to humanity and is having an impact, perhaps more or less visible.
Yes, I think, well, everything is vibration in the natural world, and we get to understand this more and more from physics, so from the advancement of sciences, from what we experience actually with medical conditions also that seem to be linked with electromagnetic frequencies that we do not quite fully understand, though there are certain even medical doctors who are going on towards this side of things to try to link these electromagnetic frequencies to different kinds of health issues that are appearing. And we spoke in this talk already about the electromagnetic field of the school. So all these, I mean, we could somehow link them together and link to this vibration, this energy, this vibration that we're all made of. So we need to be conscious about also about, I think, about the fact that we also spoke in here about two different worlds, so the divine world and the dialectical world, so two life fields. And the so-called electromagnetic radiation in the divine world is, of course, we all heard about the emerald tablet and the saying, as above, so below. So everything as above, so as in the divine world, so below, so in our dual world. So the electromagnetic radiation from the divine world has a correspondent in our world of dualities as electromagnetic vibrations. So this is not really an answer to anything, just a starter point of thoughts that could make a link between what's going on. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, if we speak about fields of radiation fields or information fields, every time we think about something, every time we connect with an idea or an emotion, or every time we make a plan, we do create what is called a thought form, and a certain radiation is radiated from our head or our heart or our pelvis center. Looking back at that presentation, which I'm going to share. So we have three main centers in our personality. And every time we activate one of them, or possibly two of them at the same time, because the head is always influenced by our instincts, and the heart sometimes as well is influenced by our instincts. Very rarely our head and our heart are cooperating, but anytime we do come out with a creation in ourselves, we radiate a certain energy field. Obviously, as a person, we're very weak. But if you put a lot of people together, for example, in a stadium or in a church, and they all think about the same things, or they all experience a certain fear or whatever it is, then this radiation will be able to go out in the world and will start having an effect, first of all on ourselves, but also on the people that live and dwell around us. Now, our thought is always either in the past or living in the future, projecting in the future. And our needs, our fears, our emotions are projected either in the past or in the future. So, what is 5G? If not the creation of a greed that we live in this world? And we always need to be faster. We're talking about time today. We need a faster pace of life. We need faster connection to each other. We need faster access to the internet, faster exchange of information. And obviously, how we do that, sometimes we might do that by forgetting about what's essential. And we certainly do. And we can project it onto the powers of this world. But in reality, we all do that. There's no one no one is good here, no, not even one, as it was said. And the first, I mean, the sooner we kind of recognize that in ourselves, the sooner we can do something about it. And so 5G really to me speaks about our nature and how we always need to make plans, to whether it's about survival, whether it's about aggrandizement of ourselves, and we don't really take in consideration the consequences that this might have on us, on our, on the people around us, or the community, or in this case, possibly the world. There is
Dario. That's yes. Sorry, that's something from Ryan that we can read, but also Wizzy would like to add something. So Wizzy, I'll just quickly read the comment from Ryan, and then I will ask you to please comment. So Ryan has written in the chat, speaking of 5G, besides raising your vibration and not being in fear, I do know there are minerals, crystals and magnets that help protect the cells of our body and our aura. The danger of 5G is that those millimeter 60 gigahertz frequencies actually speed up, oscillate the electrons of our cells, making it harder to breathe, eventually depriving us of oxygen. Being around trees helps protect us from this, but unfortunately the people setting up the 5G towers are also cutting down trees in the area. But for protection, shungite, orgonite, neodymium magnets, black tourmaline, gold, shin obsidian, magnetic hematite, tensor rings are things we can use to help. Thank you for your explanation. By the way, I like what you just said. So thank you, Ryan, for your contribution. And please, Wuzzy, would you like to?
Yes, thank you, Cora. I wanted to expand a little bit also on what Dario said, or add another aspect to it. The fact that we live in a world, or you could say we live in an emergency order. We live in a place where we are reminded of our first calling, you could say, or things come about to us, experiences come about such that we are reminded, or we are pushed to be reminded about why we exist, why we are here. And circumstances are occurring where in the planet or in the interstellar world, vibrations are coming to us from various planets to be able to bring humanity to a certain crisis. So whether those ideas are self-created by ourselves, whether those concepts and so on are created by this push to be able to bring humanity as a whole to remember its roots, to get down to its roots and understand that they are spiritual beings. They are made of a certain vibration and fire principle, such that once they start living off that principle, once they are able to return on the path of their being reconstituted such that their fire element in them it's much more dynamic, then all of this then wouldn't matter much. And so the way I would look at it is, when we look at all of this, whether it's 5G or interstellar vibrations that are causing more cancers, or whatever panics or pandemics or whatever they are, or even just at your own cellular level in the family with family fights, whatever it is, it's pushing us towards trying to understand who we are, the path of return, to the oneness of life. And so, because all of those barriers are principally in us. And so to the extent that we can bridge those barriers of our consciousness, any aspect is a reminder, any aspect is for us to be conscious of where we find ourselves, the behavior we have, the exposures we have, such that we can be able to return to the oneness of life. So that's the only way. That's the only thing I wanted to add to that.
Great, thank you, Wesley. That's excellent. I totally connect with that. Yeah, we are given opportunities to realize where we are and to reconnect. And I think I wanted to quote something from the Bible that Michael Stanford reminded us a little while ago. First seek the kingdom of God and everything else will be given to you. So if we connect and we remember that we are eternal beings, and we remember that we are still part of that divine electromagnetic radiation, so to say, or that divine world, then everything else will fall into place. That's what we need to do, just reconnect.
Yeah, and it's another thing that just linking to the current situation with the, without opening too much of a window into the coronavirus, many people find themselves separated from their community, or anyway, having a lot of time in their hands, and this seems to be quite a mental effect on people. We don't really know what to do with all this time. We have been given this habit of running around like a headless chicken, always having something to do, always the next task at work, always the next job, going back home, prepare a dinner, or going to the gym, whatever activity we have self-imposed or have been imposed onto us. We have given this reality that we live in, where time accelerates. I think time accelerates, and it gives us the possibility on one side to, as you said, to come to a crisis at one point and perceive that there is something else in life. Kind of refocus on what is essential, as you, Cora and Wuji, was saying. And
you have a comment.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
I was just looking at a comment from iPhone, which says, "We pupils of the spiritual school, if we can stay." I'm not sure what is meant by a campus. If we can stay in.
Must be the T9, how do you call it, the predictive keyboard. So if we say, in our own protected field of radiation.
Okay, in a field, yes, I think that vessel, okay, our radiation that is vibrating magnetically higher, no virus will be living on us if we don't allow it into our sphere of life.
Yes.
Maybe, yes, a sphere of life if we stay alert, vibrating higher and being fully conscious. Yes, so I think it's the same if we connect to the divine world, if we remember that we are eternal divine beings, and make that connection with the divine radiation, then that can take over.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's not so much the virus cannot catch us, or we cannot catch a virus. It's just that when you walk a spiritual path, as he was saying in one of the last during the presentation, in one of the last slides, your focus in life, your attitude in life switches to what is essential. And so the problems, the adversities, the obstacles that we all live as a prison also change into lessons, into opportunities for learning about ourselves, about the spiritual values that we live and that we put in practice or not. And so, once you are one with everything, then you don't need to worry anymore about getting sick, about dying. You leave fear behind. You don't live in this state of mind or in this state of consciousness where all sorts of low vibrations have a hold on you. And that's your true core comes to the fore, and obviously that true core cannot be touched by a virus, because the virus is only on this material level. But at that point, your consciousness has gone well beyond that material level and has encompassed the spiritual reality that then is coming into manifestation. And Sarah has a comment.
Sarah has a comment here. Can you talk more on the idea that acceleration of time means an increase of light? I find myself running out of time and desiring more time for more readings, more books, more teachings. The more time I seem to have, the lesser it becomes.
That's very interesting. And it's true. I think we are all running out of time. And that's because we want to fill our lives with more and more stuff, with more and more, as you said, with more and more books, more reading, more teachings. And perhaps the key to it is taking out, getting rid of what is not essential. And obviously readings can be very fruitful, but they can be a help, in some time, in some periods of our lives, that can give us insight. But at the same time, if we fill our lives, with we can fill our lives with lessons, with all kind of videos from gurus or from schools, the so-called teachings, and then there's no more time to focus on the other one, on the rose of the heart, as we called it. And actually, on the other side, the rose of the heart, that spiritual atom, doesn't need time, because it is beyond this reality of time and space. So it just comes to my mind, the time that we give ourselves to practice a spiritual path is actually always time that we give the ego to practice its own masking.
I think the more we center in the now, in the moment, the more we can sense that eternity that is in us and that wants to bloom in us. And maybe that's what happens, that everything accelerates around us to point towards this immovable center that is in no time, that has nothing to do with time.
And sorry, Sarah, she raised her hand. Sarah, would you like to speak up?
I think you in some way answered the question, you both. Thank you. I mean, the more I am aware of things, of myself, the more I mean, it's just we live in a very contradictory world. So the more I understand things, the more I want to know, right? The more I want to know, the more I feel I awake. The more I awake, I want to translate it into understanding words, and the more I start searching for, okay, if I feel this, what does this mean? And then you mentioned, and then I feel more than ever that I'm running out of time. I didn't feel like this before, and it's like it's almost increasing by the day. And you mentioned something about, I don't know, in my commentary that, let me read it. You said that acceleration of time means an increase of light, because it is in a way related, in my case, with some sort of, I'm going to use the word, and I'm trying to stay away of these words because people talk so much, use this word so much that I don't know anymore what they mean, awakening, but, or feeling the light. If you can understand what that means, because people talk so much about it that now it's like all these empty concepts or cliches. But so can you develop more that idea, if it's okay? If not, that's okay too. So thank you for, anyway, this is very good for me to think and reflect.
Thank you, Sarah, for participating.
Woozy, I think maybe Woozy wanted to come in.
Yes, I wanted to comment. It's very interesting when I heard what Sibra said in terms of the steps, because it's the same steps that I think all of us go through on different subjects. So first, that awareness, that insight that comes in as you try to understand things, and then you realize that you try to grasp them, you try to contain them, you try to keep them for yourself, you want to know these things, you want to read more about it, you want to be enlightened by it. And then at some point, after going through that, you realize that you have to let go of. You have to come to the point of, I don't know, I don't wish to know, I don't care to know. I will just let whatever comes inside me speak to me, something like that. Or you could say, you get to a point whereby you experience non-time. And by that, what I'm getting at is, let's say, for example, you prepare yourself internally. You are in a place where you are forgetting the things that tend to dominate your life, the things that you will call are time-based, the things that are that make the mechanics of your life move, and you just want to connect with whatever is deep within you. And so when that moment comes, when you create the space for that, let's say, then you are less worried about time and space. You're less worried whether you are doing it for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 15 minutes or an hour. You are just there. And once you are there, then the time-space relativity doesn't really affect you. It's more of the inner space within you that you connect with, and that you hope to do so more often in your life than less, in a sense, just creating that space. So in the beginning, let me put it that way, the journey is you first try to understand, you get insights about it, I try as much as possible to get all this knowledge from here and there and so on, to enlighten yourself and be self-aware of where you are at in things. And then at a certain point you get tired of all of that, and you hope to be there, and I'm speaking of my own journey in a sense, so everybody may have a different path, I recognize that, where you allow you allow everything you know to float, or you question everything you know, in a sense. Whether it's coming from the school, whether it's coming from the universal teachings, whether it's coming from whatever else, you question it in the sense that you allow your own experiences, your own wisdom from inside to sprout out and give you direction of your life. And but that first part is important. The first part of trying to understand and to know and to hold on to certain concepts of life and let that guide you. But you also reach a point where you have to let go all of that, and that is the more difficult part. But that's just my contribution. I'm curious to hear what Dario and Cora would say to that.
Well, for me, I recognize what you're saying, Buji. As you said, there is a time where you try, and as Sira was also saying, there is a stage in your life where you suddenly kind of recognize that what's around you doesn't correspond with what you feel within you, and there is this search, this thirst for wisdom, for insight, for knowledge, and you look everywhere. You have to look everywhere. That's sometimes we call it the call of the brotherhood, the call of the light. Yeah, it's something acting in you that stirs you very deep in you. And obviously, the first reaction is always for us to use the tools that we have, the tools that we've known all along. And these tools are the tools of the ego, of the personality. And many people turn everywhere for answers. Some people go into politics, other people go into religion, into mysticism or esotericism. Other people, they try to fight for their own freedom, for ecological freedom, whatever it is. And then a few people are lucky enough to find, what we call perhaps, a veiled side to truth. They might find it through books. They might, nowadays we might find it even through videos on YouTube or a website, or perhaps speaking with somebody that we know. And something catches our ear, our eye, our heart, and we start following that lead. And the more, as you said, the more we experience that inner calling, the more we have to go the way, the path. And this path is individual for all of us. We can't tell any other person how to live their lives or what to search for, because these are questions that stem directly from our heart. And we try different paths. We try different. Everyone has an answer to these questions. And first, we need to listen to other people's answers. And as Sira was saying, we need more time, because the time that we have is taken away from us. It's taken away in all sorts of ways. Being the media always catching our attentions, being the troubles of this world, being our own personal tragedies, our life. And yet there is a space where we can connect, and it doesn't really matter where you are, what you're doing. It's a radiation that or a field to which you can connect. And obviously the practice of a spiritual school like ours is to put this connection and in practice. So to connect and practice what the information that you receive. And it is not an information for the brain. It's not an information for our own ego to say, oh, this is the plan now, I'm gonna follow step 1, step 2, step 3. No, it's a different type of information that is not, as we say, is not of this nature, and so cannot immediately result in in result in something tangible. we kind of need to make space. We need to let go of many things within ourselves before we can actually reach it. Cora, what do you think?
Yes, for me, I mean, I go through cycles of going in and out. So going inwards, feeling a different kind of understanding, and then going again outwards to try to look at things again with a different light. So I go through cycles of being more able, so to say, to connect to that inner core and let go and surrender. And then I get again the thirst for trying to understand again with my mind and looking for things and trying to read more and to see with different eyes. I'm not sure if I explain it correctly. Because in my experience, it's a continuous process of finding different things inside and then putting them in practice outside, like doing, reading, speaking, and then getting a different understanding. So for me, it's a continuous process of connecting with that eternal being, with my core, and then getting a different understanding and a different willing and a different desire to look for different things outside. And that's when you're again outside in the phase of doing and of trying to express things outside. That's when the time takes over. When you're inside, when you're connected with that eternal being and we are reconnecting and in that surrender phase, then time almost disappears. But for us, being in the world, though we're in the world but not of the world, so we should be, but we're still not there. I mean, we're still in the world. So when I'm in the world, when I'm trying to practice in the world what I find inside, in the that static point inside, but when I try to practice it and be outside, that's when the time restarts, so to say.
There is almost a dialogue between eternity and time that happens within ourselves, and we connect at times to eternity and then we disconnect from eternity and we immerse ourselves in time again. And I suppose the aim for us is to connect these two aspects, to create unity within ourselves again, so that the time that we are given becomes meaningful, and a second becomes, a second of eternity as such. And so every minute, becomes so much more, and every hour so much more. And this consciousness that loses itself, in every second, because it's always pulled here and there. Once it's vivified and renewed by a different value within ourselves, then can be that bridge of connection. And so, as you were saying, in this world, but not of this world, and yet in this world, always, because this is the task to make life, a sanctuary within ourselves, but also then, then the responsibility becomes also unto others, and not in a priestly way, not in a, or better, not in a preaching way, but more as radiating, not 5G, but a different blessing, being the channel for something else into this reality, so that others might perceive it as well and then follow it. And there is on the chat there is a comment from Alma Covarrubias, and as Jesus said, the knowledge of the secrets of the kingdom of God has been given to you, but to others I speak in parables, so that though seeing they may not see, though hearing they may not understand. For me, since the time I joined the school, has been a journey of knowledge and awaken every day of the secrets of the God in himself, on a very humble way. Yeah, so for those who are not in the school, this is a witnessing of an experience of a pupil.
We've got Milos also, who's raised his hand.
Come on, Milos.
Hi, I wanted to share one picture from one of our books, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
Are you able to see?
Yes.
Yeah.
This is from the alchemical wedding of the Christian Rosicrucian, where he is pulled by one of the ropes that were lower down, being 7 of them, or we can say a race. But as usual, you have always people pulling you down, which means we do need, as we need our natural immunity, we need also spiritual immunity, because one way or another, something is pulling you down. But sometimes we are the ones being the obstacle on our path. But we are living in an interesting time, and we cannot ignore 5G and other technologies that we probably don't even know about. And as any technology could be misused. Also to comment, was Uji already mentioned, there are vibration and radiations from the nature, from the planets, and sometimes they have a correctiveness based on our current state. If we apply, cooperate, maybe they are helping us, but if we do not comply, we do feel opposite. But we can also not ignore that there is man-made things that we also have to deal with, but our focus should stay on this spiritual aspect, but not to ignore, as Ryan mentioned, that there is certain things around that we should be definitely aware, but to try to build that spiritual immunity.
And George wanted to say something. Hi, George.
Yes. I wanted to just come back to that very interesting picture from the alchemical wedding. It's only, it's metaphorically speaking. Christian Rosicrucian gets hit on the head by one of the ropes, and he stops thinking. And that's when he's able to grasp the rope and get pulled up. So in answer to one of the other person's question, when they were saying that they didn't think they had enough time, maybe the time is to actually stop thinking, stop trying to read so much and do nothing, no hyphen thing. And then when that's possible, maybe we can get rid of some of the other baggage that we have in our heads that we constantly are referring to all of the time. But I do agree that picture by the alchemical wedding, is very is very much to the point of what we have today. It's the mass hysteria which is around us all over the place. We've been totally manipulated by this virus threat. I mean, they've got people running. The powers that run this world are really pushing the button now. Maybe we can talk about that somehow.
Yeah, thank you, Milos, and thank you, George. And that George was speaking about that rock that hits Christian Rosicrucians on the head, and it's true. Our head is it's like a cinema. It creates films all the time. It takes elements from different places, takes fear, takes projection, takes our past experiences, and creates a film. Whether it's a horror film or it's a romantic film, and this film is not necessarily, projecting perfectly onto life. In fact, most of the times it's completely different from what life is and what the experience in front of us is. But because of that projection, we go in life and we go through life always often in a closed attitude. We are not necessarily ready to give a chance to another person to change. Perhaps we had a bad experience with the person yesterday, but today maybe they're in a good mood, and we approach them, thinking about what happened yesterday. Or, with many things, like with George was mentioning the virus, mass hysteria, and people get out of control. They can't see, clearly anymore. But we also need to be understanding of these things, because we've lived them, or perhaps we're still living them, in our own ways, in our own little bubbles, and there's no really much space for condemnation. Not when you realize that the state of your consciousness determines the state of your life. And so, if your consciousness it's trapped, it's stuck in some place, it's difficult for anybody to be able to experience something different from what they're experiencing. As close-minded as it might be, or it might look to us, that's their reality, and we all live our own reality. But that connection within, that link that we can make within ourselves, that's what we share, and that's what we share in the school as well. Pupils and members of the school, thousands of them in the world, come from different places, different languages, different backgrounds, and yet something links us all in our quest. This connection to a field of wisdom. Then needs to become
back to that, Dario.
Yeah, please.
There's the other thing, which is very peculiar, is the this thing about this vaccinations, which are which are being planned. Now, I think a lot of people are ill these days because of the food that they're eating, and the food is full of all sorts of things. There's been mass vaccinations on the flu virus and stuff like that. And I think that the big danger coming is that the powers that run this world, they will say that they have they will have some antidote to this thing, and they will start vaccinating people, and that will I think effectively make a lot of people into zombies. And there's also a problem of this depopulation, which has been spoken about.
Okay, George, without
I think
Yeah.
we've got Marietta also who wanted to speak for a while.
Yes, I just wanted to go back to that wonderful drawing that Milos showed us. Thank you. And one thing that wasn't mentioned is around the top of the pit, all the members of the Brotherhood really hauling on that rope and pulling it up to help us. So we have to remember that wherever we are in the world, in being a pupil, not being a pupil, everybody is being helped, is being offered everything that we need by the Brotherhood. And if we trust in that and listen with that when we say, this is exactly what's right for me at this time, now how do I look at it differently, given that information? That really helps. It gives us a clue how to go forward, which is sometimes not, may not seem to our personality like we're going forward, but for the soul, we're always offered the next step forward.
Absolutely. We're always given opportunities. We're always, we will always have the chance to grab on that rope. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Marietta. So I think we may start closing unless we've got any other burning questions or comments.
I will just emphasize, sorry, quick, what George said, even that we are trying to focus on the spiritual, but I think that he really brought some at least interesting points that we should at least be aware, not